All right, it's time for some real talk. We have made it to the end of our grocery money, but we have not made it to payday. And so I thought it would be a good idea to show you what our family does in a situation like this. It doesn't happen all the time, but we had a very expensive month in September between, school starting, and we had some vet bills that came up. We had to pay a plumber for a remodel. We filled our freezer with pork, which is very helpful. It's less expensive to do it that way, and it keeps our budget lower all year, but it takes away our cushion. So in moments like this, when the grocery budget is running low, there isn't a lot of cushion to take from. So I thought I would take you along with me as I cook for my family for a week using what we have in the house and a very limited budget. So the goal for this week is just to make it to payday. And I'm doing 3 things specifically to help our family do that. So one of the things that I'm doing is making our own bread. We are going to be eating a lot of peanut butter and jelly this week. And I work during the day. I don't have time to be making a lot of bread from scratch. So I actually have a bread machine. You can find them really cheap at like Goodwill. But I love the fact that I can just put the ingredients in. It takes me about 10 minutes to let the yeast do its thing. And then I close the lid and let it fly. It takes 3 hours and it just does its thing. And when it beeps, we have fresh bread, and our family loves it, and it's so easy and cheap. So I will be doing bread machine bread this week. The second thing I'm doing to get us through this week is finding some grocery budget. Sometimes when this happens for us, we'll just sell something on Facebook Marketplace. Other times we will, I might have something that needs to be returned to the store and I just haven't gotten around to it. So I will take care of that return. But this week I was cleaning our room and I realized that we had our coin jar was looking pretty thick with change. And I was like, well, there's some money. And so I was able to round up some quarters and some dollar bills and found $20. So I have kind of set that as my budget for this week. And I think with everything we have in our house, we should be fine. So then that's the third thing I'm doing. With that $20 budget, I am not going right now to the grocery store. Normally, I will grocery shop at the beginning of the week, and then we do our meals. But when I'm dealing with a small budget, I wait as long as possible to spend that money because I want to make sure that I've identified exactly what our family needs to get through the week. And so the way I've set up my meal plan, the stuff that I have everything for right now, those are the things that I'm cooking at the beginning of the week. And then hopefully by the middle of the week, I will know exactly what we need then to get us through till payday. So let's get cooking. Well, pardon my appearance this morning, but our goal is already being challenged first thing. I'm going to an event today that includes a luncheon, and one of the gals who was going to make a soup couldn't go. And she offered to bring a cooked soup last night that I could reheat, but I don't have room in my fridge for that. And then she volunteered to just bring the ingredients to me, but as someone who doesn't like to cook, I definitely don't want to do an unknown recipe the day of the event. So I told her, keep the ingredients for your family. I will, use what I have here at the house and make a soup. So that is what I'm doing. Initially, I thought, well, maybe I should just go to the store, grab a couple of things, but then I remembered my goal of really not grocery shopping this week, and I didn't want it to eat into the tiny budget that I'd given myself. So we do have the stuff for a soup, and I will get that started. But it's early. I have to leave in about an hour and a half, so I want to get that soup made, and then also I want to get something in the crock pot for my own family because I'm going to be gone until close to dinner time. I know, I've got like the cozy background music. I've got my apron on. The house is quiet. I mean, in reality, this should just be a very pleasant morning, but I really don't enjoy spending time in the kitchen. But when I have simple recipes and all that's needed of me is mainly just to chop, I'm good to go. So potato soup, if money is tight, this is probably one of the cheapest things that you can make, and it tastes so good, you don't even realize that you're eating a budget meal. So really all you need is about 4 to 5 cups of potatoes, half an onion, a couple stalks of celery, barely cover it with water, and then let it cook. While that is simmering on the stove, I'm going to start the chili for my family. I will link the real recipe, but because money's tight, this is what I had. I just added an extra can of beans because I was not going to add any meat to this chili. And then you see the seasonings here. It's pretty straightforward. I even didn't want to chop an onion, so I just used the chopped dehydrated onion. And then I only had one small can of tomato sauce, and it needed a little bit more, so I just, rinsed out the can and used a little bit of the tomatoey water to kind of add a little more sauce to the situation. And then that's it. I put a lid on it and it was ready to simmer all day long. Now this recipe called for 1.5 sticks of butter and I only had one, but I did have half and half in my fridge. I had only used a tiny bit, so it pretty much was everything I needed for this recipe. I just topped it off with a little bit of milk to make 4 cups. And then I was able to find exactly half a stick of butter in our butter dish. And so then I was able to make, the cream base for this soup. And it's basically just equal parts butter and flour. Then you add the milk and you just kind of let it get thick like this. And then once the vegetables are done, I reserve some of the liquid because I prefer it to be thicker, and then if I need to add more liquid, I just use that starchy potato water. We prefer our potato soup more like a chowder, and so I do mash the potatoes. I try not to get too carried away with the mashing. I did this time because I was a little bit in a rush, but then you just add that cream base to the rest of the soup and season with salt and pepper, give it a taste and see what's missing, but that's it. And it tastes so good. It is a family favorite around here for sure. Well, now I'm back from the event and it's time to get our family's dinner on the table. And I'm just making up a quick green salad to go with our chili dogs. And one thing that I do to just limit the time I spend in the kitchen is I have this big glass bowl that you'll see here and it has a lid on it. And I just make as big of a salad as I can. And then when dinner is over, we just throw that in the fridge. And then we have that salad for a couple of days. I usually have to top it off with some extra spinach and lettuce, but all the good stuff in the salad, like the tomatoes and cucumber, tends to fall to the bottom anyway. And so this is just an easy way that I save time so that I don't have to make a fresh salad every night for dinner. But basically, this is it. I grate the carrots because it gets my family to eat them. And then our meal was just chili dogs. I cooked the hot dogs on the grill, and that was our meal. For our Sunday dinner, I just used that thick homemade bread, and I gave it a quick toast under the broiler, and then I added some tuna salad and topped it with different types of cheese that we had in our fridge and put it under the broiler, and everybody loved it. I don't eat tuna, and so I just had leftover salad and chili for my meal, but this is one of my kids' plates. Monday is a night when I have to rely heavily on the Crockpot, and we had some cube steak in the freezer that I wanted to use up, and I wasn't in the mood to make chicken fried steak. So this is a recipe that I normally use with like round steak, but you just put onion at the bottom, top it with your meat, then sprinkle some brown gravy mix on top, more onion, and then you just pour some beef stock in there and let it cook. The cube steak, I don't know, by the time it cooked, it resembled more like ground beef at the end. It didn't shred, it just kind of crumbled, and that was fine. But basically, I just made some rice. I put my Instant Pot on delay start, and we topped it with rice and had some veggies out of the freezer. It tasted way better than it looked. All right, well, we have made it to Tuesday without going to the grocery store. My husband had to go to a work meeting out of town, and so for the next 2 days, there were a couple of meals that we wanted to make while he was gone. Because I don't know about you, but my husband works a blue collar job. He expends a lot of energy and he is starving when he gets home from work. And it just seems mean to make meals that I know he doesn't love or that are probably just a little bit too light to fill him up. So we usually save those meals for when he's out of town. I had pretty much all of the stuff to make these 2 meals. We just needed a couple of inexpensive things from the store. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I have just loose change and dollar bills that I found in my purse, and I kind of held that for my budget for this week's grocery shopping. So I'm here picking up my daughter from school, and then we are going to head to Walmart to pick up these things, and I will show you our little mini grocery haul when we get back home. Okay, so this is everything we got in our little mini grocery haul. So this grouping is for one dinner, this is for another, and then honestly, we're running out of milk and butter. This dinner, we already have a head of lettuce, but I thought we could just use a little bit more because the salad is the main dish. It's a taco salad in the style of the household that I grew up in, and so my kids love it when I make it. We don't eat it very often. And then I'm also doing like a chili cheesy mac tomorrow. And so I was out of tomato sauce and I couldn't believe it, but I didn't have any elbow macaroni. So that's everything. My budget for the midweek grocery shop was $20 and we spent $14.11. So like I just mentioned, this is the taco salad of my childhood. It's very simple, but it tastes really good and my kids love it. So basically I just took my ground beef out of the freezer, and they come in 2-pound tubes. And so after cooking it, I set some aside to use for tomorrow. I use homemade taco seasoning just because of food sensitivities. And I just added a few tablespoons of that with some water. And then as that was just kind of simmering and reducing, I got to work on the salad itself. And it's very simple. We just do tomato, some grated carrot, and iceberg lettuce. And then I also add a can of kidney beans that's been rinsed, and then a can of garbanzo beans. And then once the meat has cooled a little bit, I add that, and then kind of mix it up so that it can continue to cool off, because I didn't want the cheese to get melty in there. So I just make sure that everything is kind of cooled off enough for the cheese, and then I mix that in as well. And I don't know if anyone else has kidney beans and garbanzo beans in their taco salad, but it's really good. Okay, so this cheesy chili mac, I will link the original recipe below, but I have made changes based on, again, food sensitivities. So I just do some chili powder, some cumin, and I just kind of mix that with the sauteed onion, and you have to keep mixing so it doesn't burn. And then I added that ground beef out of the fridge and some brown sugar, and I just let that kind of cook together and get flavorful. And then it's time to add the tomato sauce. And then, once that's had time to kind of simmer together, I add some additional water. And so you have to be precise with the water because it cooks into the pasta. So what I do is I measure out the water, but then I pour it into that tomato sauce can before I put it in the pot. And then you just add 2 cups of elbow macaroni, let it simmer. And then once all of that water has been absorbed, then you add cheese. And it is really that simple, and it tastes so good. The original recipe calls for garlic and things like that, and it makes it more flavorful, but honestly, the way I make it, it's also very tasty. And we are getting down to the last of our side dish options, so we just chopped up some apples for our side dish that night. And then we made it to Payday. This is our last meal before we go to the grocery store, and we just had breakfast for dinner. So overall, we were able to make it to Payday. I consider it a success. If you would like to continue to follow along with our weekly meal planning shenanigans, I'd love it if you would subscribe. I'll see you next time.